I think it would be safe to say that our next guest has become a hero to Second Amendment activists all across the state of Idaho, and that is because he was the driving force behind SB 1389, which is now law, and that is permitless concealed carry in the state of Idaho, which will be taking effect in a couple of months. Not yet in effect. We need to make that clear because I think even though you have a governor's signature on it, there's still a bit of a lag time there, and that might raise some of those legal questions people have had over the last few weeks. We're joined this morning by State Senator Curt McKenzie, joining us this morning from the Nampa area. And first of all, first time on our program, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
This bill came about, and I know probably had been in discussion for quite some time. Maybe you can give us a little bit of a history of it, and how it almost probably this year was the year it passed, and perhaps maybe it was due time that it actually came around.
Well, the history of it goes back almost 8 years because it was about 2007 and 2008 when certain Idaho cities started to talk about imposing higher carry restrictions than is under state law. And so in the 2008 session, I carried a bill and we passed it that preempted local jurisdictions from putting higher requirements on your ability to get a permit. And then from there, we worked on what we called campus carry, which was to prohibit the public universities from not allowing those with the enhanced permit or retired law enforcement from carrying on the public areas of the campus, not stadiums or classrooms. And then this year we were able to get the permitless carry, which a lot of organizations outside of what I've been doing have been working on for several years as well. So it's, I would say, a culmination of a lot of efforts and steps to get there.
Now, we have a lot of people who, there were, I think, a handful of objectors in the Republican Party. They were not against the bill per se, and there was also at least a caution from the governor when he signed it. There were people who are saying that obviously they support it, but they're a little nervous about a lack of training that people still, and their recommendation is don't ignore training, that people still should get that even though it's not required. Are they being too cautious in your opinion, or would you make the same recommendation?
Well, I would make the recommendation that people get training. In jurisdictions, other states around the United States, they haven't found a correlation between accidents or gun crimes and government mandated training. But what they do find is when people start to carry, they are interested in getting training. So it motivates people to get training once they start carrying. And so I don't think it's going to be a safety issue in the state, but I think training is always important, and I always encourage people to get training.
We had a caller last week, and I was sharing with you off air that we had a couple of sergeants from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department in studio, and a caller wanted to know because there's still some restrictions, obviously, with schools and federal buildings and installations, but the caller wanted to know if it would still apply in a city park, for instance.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the same limitations will apply as before, so that um, if you could have local ordinances that restrict when you can carry in certain areas or at certain times, and so it's not going to change that. This just makes it so that if you don't have a permit, you're not otherwise disqualified, you could carry, but those local ordinances are still going to apply just like before.
And so people have to keep in mind that this is not just a free for all like the Wild West at this point. And if they violate those old restrictions, they're likely going to find themselves in some trouble.
That's right. That's right. They're still there. We're not like, for example, private property rights. Shop owners, homeowners have, large landowners have all the rights they had to before to either restrict or allow it, and you're going to still have the same kind of restrictions, things like parks or some public areas.
State Senator Curt McKenzie is our guest, and of course, he was the driving force behind SB 1389, which is the permitless concealed carry law on the way in the state of Idaho. And it takes effect, is it is it July 1st?
That's right. Yeah, that's our new fiscal year in the state, and that's when bills go into effect unless there's some emergency. So it'll be July 1.
And again, if people are carrying right now and they get stopped, or they could end up still basically in trouble with the law if no pun intended, they jump the gun on this.
That's right.
Well, we have a telephone caller with us. It's 912. Curt McKenzie, our guest, state senator from the Nampa area. And the caller, you're on the air with the senator. Go ahead.
Hi, Senator. I want to thank you for this.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. It's my pleasure to be able to help get it passed.
And I have faith in all my fellow Idahoans. A lot of us have done military training, and some even already have our concealed weapons permit. But I have faith that we know what we're doing. I know the cops are scared to some extent, but I think this is only going to be good.
Well, and I think you're right. And with respect to law enforcement, the Sheriff's Association came out strongly in favor of it. And the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the largest organization of law enforcement officers in the state, and mostly made up the guys who are the front line officers that are out on patrol and serving warrants, they were strongly in favor of it as well. And so, they understand that armed, lawful citizens help stop crimes.
I heard that from a trooper one day when he said, in Idaho, you just assume everyone is carrying, so it's not going to change that. The approach is going to be the same for everyone in law enforcement.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They have a risky job, and they have to make that assumption when they make a stop or serve a warrant. But a lot of times they are not, able to get there when a crime is occurring, and so having lawful citizens that carry within the bounds of the law do help prevent crimes.
We have another caller with us, and caller, you're on the air with Senator McKenzie at 914 on KLIX. What's on your mind?
Yes, there's, as you mentioned, some fear in police officers, but they need to realize that we've had basically concealed carry in the state for a long time. It's just the cities that are changing. But my question involves reciprocity and the enhanced permit, and if you could talk about plans for that enhanced permit. I heard some talk that they might be trying to push to eliminate it, which would affect the reciprocity.
Yeah, I think it would be a bad idea to eliminate it. Our enhanced permit is one of the best in the country, I believe, with respect to reciprocity. And so a lot of people who may start carrying now under a permitless system, I think will want to get that so that they'll have the right to be able to carry in the majority of states that honor our enhanced permit. So I don't think it would be good policy to try and get rid of that.
One thing that strikes me is a lot of people still are training. Obviously, I live not too far away from a range, and I can hear, especially on Sunday afternoons, people out there practicing. In order to maintain that across state lines, you have to have that training, right?
That's right. You have to have the training for the enhanced permit in order to get it. But even that is not significant training in the sense that, a lot of shooters will say you have to put, a certain number of rounds downrange on a regular basis in order to be, a certain proficiency level. And so, the government doesn't require you to do that. But if you're going to carry and you want to be effective, I would suggest people, regularly go to their range and be familiar with whatever firearm they use.
State Senator Curt McKenzie, our guest. It's 9:16. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Our next caller joins us. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, you were talking about carrying on campus, and you mentioned you cannot carry in the classroom. Do you remember saying that?
Go ahead, Senator. Did that come up at some point?
I didn't catch the end of that. What was that?
You said you cannot carry in the classroom. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
So you could have it. You could have the firearm on campus, but you're not going to take it into the science lab, then, for instance.
or dorm rooms or the stadiums you couldn't carry.
I would assume
Or auditorium.
that's important though, from the fact that when we had the shooting in Oregon some months ago, if you have someone on campus who at least may have something in the car, and something like this starts up, someone can race to the car. It's a little closer than, let's say, racing across town to find a firearm for self-defense.
Well, and part of it was we have kind of large, sprawling campuses in a lot of places, and so you could be walking or driving near, for example, Boise State, and be unintentionally breaking the law just because you're on campus.
And when you mentioned that too, there's going to have to be among law enforcers a little bit of flexibility applied to this, because if you are driving down the street and you pass a school, for instance, you're within 1,000 feet of the school. There's you technically are breaking the law, but that's not your intention if you're just passing the school to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, the gun-free school zone under the federal law is still going to apply, and so technically, if you're carrying without a permit, like elected officials or judges can right now, and so technically, if they're within 1,000 feet of a school, they'd be in violation of that. And so we're still going to have that. We're not going to be able to change that federal law. And that's the reason some people do get their permit, because the background check for that qualifies for the federal requirement as well. So that's not an issue. Although I've never seen that applied or charged against anyone.
I was going to say, if you're concerned about it, maybe you just drive a few blocks away and do a bit of a roundabout trip to the store in that situation, and that takes care of all of that.
Yeah.
We do want to mention, if you'd like to reach the senator while he's joining us this morning, telephone number 736-0300. Just a quick note: we have a short break coming up, but we've got more time to spend with him, and you can ask some of those difficult questions. He's got the answers today. And about 20 seconds before the break, if I could, in the next segment too, I'd like to mention that the senator is also running for another office this year, and his goal is to leave the state Senate. We might talk about that after the break if you've got a couple of minutes. You'd like to address that too as well, right?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Because we're talking a little bit about judges, and perhaps if we're looking for someone with a little bit of flexibility and common sense, this might be the man. That's on the way in just a few minutes. State Senator Curt McKenzie joining us this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're up to 46 at 9:20, and we've got more conversation on the way. Save those telephone calls. Our guest is State Senator Curt McKenzie, joining me, Bill Colley, this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And we're talking about SB 1389, which is the new gun law in Idaho, which means coming July 1st, you'll have permitless concealed carry if you choose. 9:24, and it's 45. Also want to remind you, on Wednesday morning, we'll have one of the guests coming by, one of the members of the staff from Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls. They join us between 8 and 8:30 every Wednesday morning, and we have a discussion about a medical topic. We'll be mentioning too as well that they are still looking for new patients, and they can see you if you're a patient, sometimes on the very same day that you make a call and say that you need an appointment. Tripp Family Medicine is located on Fillmore Street in Twin Falls, directly across from the main post office. And Senator, we need to mention as well, you may be leaving the state Senate. This will be, though, your own choice if things work out.
That's right. Yeah, I've been in the Senate 7 terms from Nampa, but this year one of our Supreme Court justices retired, and although we don't have contested elections for judge positions very often, we do elect our judges in Idaho, and I'll be running for that open seat on our Idaho Supreme Court. And we vote May 17th, which is our primary election, although the race itself is a nonpartisan race.
So that's coming up in just under a month now.
That's right. Yeah, I was just up in Centerville talking to some voters, and I've gotten all over the state. So it's a short window, but I'm hoping people do get out and vote, even though we've already selected our presidential delegates.
This is how you put 25,000 extra miles on the car.
Yeah, it's been about 3,000 so far in the last 3 weeks.
We have a caller looking to join us. Caller, you're on the air with the senator. Good morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Well, I'm calling back because I got cut off when I was talking about the classroom, and I don't think the senator is correct about the classroom where you can carry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you were right. It's Senate Bill 1254 from 2014 for 2014, and the limitation is it's venues over 1,000. So basically, any of the stadiums and auditoriums is included, and dorm rooms. So
Now,
when the caller is asking about, does that apply to classrooms?
Caller, hold on for a moment. All right, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know if you caught that, but
Yeah.
you can carry in classrooms so long as it's not in a huge auditorium or venue like that, or not in the dorm room. So I think what the caller was asking about, what the caller was correct. I think I just
in the dorm,
that.
I mean, in the auditorium or a gymnasium. Now, 1,000. Does there have to be 1,000 people in it at the time, or if there's only?
No, sir. It's the capacity.
Okay, so it could be empty practically, just 20 people in there working out, but you cannot carry in the gym or in the auditorium.
Right. And we got that size because I talked with the university presidents, and although none of them liked having any limitations on their control on campuses, we picked that number because that's what they asked for.
All right, thank you.
Want to thank the caller.
Thank you, caller, for that clarification.
And in fact, we've got a couple of minutes before the next break, and we'll talk beyond that too as well. But for people who are chiming in and listening today, rather, there are a few things too that we haven't even touched on, but there are going to be certain aspects of the bill that you've been getting a lot of questions about, obviously.
Yeah, it's a significant change in the sense of where we allow people to carry, but the standards are really not that different than what we've had before. So, I want people to understand we still have our existing carry system. So the standard carry, the enhanced carry permit, we still have. Those are important for reciprocity in other states. For those that are 18 to 21 who don't have the permitless carry option within cities right now, we did provide that if they take the training to get the enhanced carry permit, then they would be able to have that. And then once they turn 21, they would be able to get the permit itself. And so we didn't restrict their rights to carry with outside city limits, but we gave them a path to carry within as well. And then the other questions that people have had is similar to the questions that you had, where people wondered if it's going to supersede existing restrictions that we have in law with regard to schools or a university or courthouses. And it doesn't touch on those at all, other than we clarified the law for like courtroom buildings, that if you're a police officer acting within the scope of your duty, you're not violating the law. Or if you're a security personnel hired by the court itself, you're not going to break the law just by having your firearm, which I think people didn't realize the previous blanket restriction encompassed both of those.
State Senator Curt McKenzie is our guest. We have more coming up in just a few minutes. We've got a short break, though, first, and taking your telephone calls, too, as well, about the changes with SB 1389 and permitless concealed carry coming to the state of Idaho on July 1st. That's just ahead. First, though, a few messages from some of our fine sponsors. It's 9:30. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. It's 47 already. Quick warm-up this morning. We're getting back to our guest in just a moment. He is joining us this morning. He's a state senator from the Nampa area. His name is Curt McKenzie, and he was the driving force behind SB 1389, which will mean come July 1st, you have permitless concealed carry in Idaho. Just before we get back to our guest, though, I do want to remind folks, Dream Room Design is still reminding people that they can come by your home and build you an outdoor room. That is a sun porch. That is basically a glass enclosure that will protect you from insects and blowing dust even throughout the summer, and you can use it year-round, of course. And they can build these. These are customized. They can build them around an existing a deck or an existing porch or even your patio. Many, many different designs are available. If you go to the website, you check out all of these custom jobs and the recommendations of customers as well at dreamroomdesign.com. They have reviews, written and video testimonials there, before and after pictures, product videos, and all sorts of details about the company, which has been in business since just at the turn of the century. They got into business at Dream Room Design in the year 2000, owner Bill Conant opening it up. Once again, dreamroomdesign.com. Check out that website and be prepared for summer. Protect yourself from the elements, even on a windy day, or, as we said, all of those insects, likely mosquitoes you may have in the neighborhood. Coming up on 9:35, and of course, Senator, we were talking off air, and the Second Amendment, liberty that we have, it's never far away from being extinguished. And right now, we have no majority really to speak of on the Supreme Court. It's really just a tie, if you think about some of these past rulings, and we have to be very concerned about what's coming in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, we do. At the national level, the District of Columbia versus Heller decision, which was that case out of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., where 5 justices affirmed the principle that the Second Amendment is a personal right, that even though it refers to the militia, the language itself refers to a personal right to carry firearms. That was a 5-4 decision, with Justice Scalia being one of those 5. Right now, the president has nominated a judge who serves right now in the D.C. Circuit named Merrick Garland, whose history strongly suggests, I would say more than suggests, indicates that he doesn't think that the Second Amendment is a personal right. And that could overturn that Heller decision, which would allow the government in places like D.C. and Detroit and Chicago and wherever they want to limit your personal right to have a firearm.
Now, even in the state of Idaho, we think about ourselves as being perhaps the reddest state in the union, but you had a lot of city governments that if they had that opportunity and there was such a decision that would come down from Washington that would try to turn around and say, aha, we're going to push back against 1389. I mean, could they do that?
Well, right now those cities can't, because that bill I carried in 2008 that said that we're preempting this entire field, and so we don't give counties and cities the authority to impose higher restrictions on your gun rights. But most of the country allows it. I went to law school in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown, and ironically, they had some of the highest gun restrictions in the country, as well as some of the highest murder rates at the same time. So it doesn't have to make sense for government to ban lawful citizens from carrying.
I was going to say, I think Chicago's on pace this year for 3,000 shootings, and there you go. You have restrictions that obviously get in the way of law-abiding people trying to protect themselves.
Yeah, I've never understood that rationale to limit people who want to follow the law and will take the steps that the government requires, when we know that the people who are committing the crimes don't care about that law or the crimes they're breaking or the laws they're breaking, and we're just disarming the lawful citizens.
We've got about a minute left, and for people who've been listening today, if they have, perhaps they come up with a question later on, can they contact your office and maybe get an answer?
Yeah, they can contact me. The website we've got now, McKenzie4Idaho.com with the number 4, or they can get me at McKenzie4Idaho@gmail.com. Those are probably the best ones to reach me. And if people have questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. And I can get back to you as well if you have other questions from callers. I'd be happy to try and help people out.
McKenzie being something like a Scottish royalty, right?
Well, it was Scottish, but it wasn't royalty.
My mother's family were Gordons, and I remember one time thinking they were a clan. And the fellow by the name of Grant, who was from Clan Grant, said to me, he said, "No, you Gordons are just what they call a department." I still haven't figured that out yet. There's a pecking order in Scotland, I guess.
Yeah, we weren't at the top of it, but it was our clan name.
Hey, I thank you much for your time today, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Hey, thanks a lot. I sure appreciate it. So thank you.
Take care now. Senator Curt McKenzie joining us from Nampa this morning. He was the prime mover behind SB 1389, which, of course, is now law in Idaho after the governor signed it a few weeks ago. And come, it'll be July 1st, permitless concealed carry is the law of the state of Idaho. And he was here this morning, obviously, answering some questions about that because we've had a lot of people who've been chiming in and been curious about exactly what this is going to mean and how it's going to impact them. 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Hey, it is tax day. Got some thoughts about that coming up in just a few minutes.